I never know when to start.
I just looked up and saw the words "You are live," and I thought, "Oh, was I starting?"
Oh, I forgot to put in the this thing. Okay, we put it in there, guys. Okay. So should we get this thing kicked off? I think Cory has the trigger that can cause.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, it's just in there. It's just one of the things. So 48-hour art check round 188.
Boom.
We are back from our break.
All right. So
we got to get something like that for the art casters now.
I know we really do. We gotta work something up. So okay, so
you guys will just have to get into animation. And get it done.
I love it. Wow, we're back from like crazy amounts of time off. At least for me, I'm not used to taking long vacations, and it was kind of weird to have like a whole week, a little over a week off. Just like I was saying before we were recording, playing Legos with the kid, like playing ukulele and just drawing comics and stuff. It's been really fun.
Yeah,
makes
that's
me want to work.
Oh man, I've had time off, but it's been on the road, and so I've barely gotten anything done. Though with the new iPad, I've been reading a lot more digital comics, which is awesome. So I've been buying some stuff on Comixology, and like Cable and Deadpool is something that I wanted to read forever ago, but I was really broke at the time, and now it's like on Comixology Unlimited. So I'm like, I've made it through like 6 or 7 issues. It's awesome.
Love it.
I forgot. Yeah, because for the longest time before I got my iPad Pro, I had a real old iPad, like the first generation, and Comixology stopped working on it, so I just gave up on it.
Right.
So I kind of forgot that that was a thing. So maybe I'll have to look into that now that I've got a newer iPad.
It's a thing, and it's awesome. Like you can buy stuff on it, but also if you just have like an Amazon Prime membership, they just make old comics, like some of them, not all of them,
right,
free every once in a while.
Oh, really? I do have Amazon Prime.
So I'm assuming they pay the creators. I should.
Oh, so did Amazon buy Comixology then?
Yeah, Amazon owns Comixology.
Okay. I did not know this because I have Prime, and now I want to get Comixology because I don't have extra income, but I do have Prime.
Yep. So maybe we should just talk about what we're all reading on Comixology. Just kidding.
That'll be a very short conversation.
Yeah. It'll be a very one-sided conversation.
All right. So should we get into the check and rock this business?
Yes.
Sure.
We should.
All right. Let's start with you, Cory. What'd you get done other than racking up 1 million words? Well, tell us what words you racked up. Come on, show.
So yeah, I got a few more rejections. I'm at 7 rejections, and I'm at 12 things. But I'm not sure. Some of these are the same thing, but I've advanced to the next round. So I don't know. I got to check on like what you do with that. I don't know if that replaces the old laurels or whatever. But anyway, I've gotten into several. I'm a finalist and a semi-finalist in 2 IMDb qualifiers, which means that if I win that, then I will be a featured IMDb award winner for their festival section, which would be kind of cool. I don't know what that means or where that ends up on the site, but I think it means that my movie gets an IMDb page, which would be cool. And then because I can never rest on my laurels, literally, I have started working on the next animation I'm doing, which is, I think I mentioned it last week. I have not gotten very far in this, but I did get kind of the room set up, and it's not quite 3D space, but it'll have a little bit of parallax to it. So I'm going to just have the kind of camera kind of drift through this scene a little bit. But this will be kind of the opening scene that will lead to kind of this conversation that this guy has. So I'm making some progress on the assets on that. And that's it. I barely got anything else done at all because I was on the road and whatnot. So
nice. I was going to joke that, if you keep collecting laurels, you might actually be able to make a pretty decent bed to rest on, because that's a ton that you're racking up.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm kind of excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good odds. You've got more than you've been rejected then.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are I got best poster and official selection at the same thing. So I mean, these two are for the same show.
Yeah,
but it's different categories. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I see what you're saying. Like, if you've moved on to the next round, you probably would discount the previous one, because if you are say I don't know. I don't know sports that well, but I know if you're the Western something championship, but then you win the whole championship, they don't usually say and Western something championship or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I gotta figure out how that works, because the New York Movie Awards, I was an official selection and now I'm a finalist. And so it goes official selection, semifinalist, finalist, and then award winner. And so I've won one, and I'm a finalist in 3, semifinalist in 1, and official selection in the rest. But I think that this New York Movie Awards finalist should replace this official selection in the same festival. So I don't know. I've got to go through. I need a better system, because I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of confused. So
it's a good place to be, though, right? Because I mean, if you had one selection or something, it wouldn't be a hard choice, But now it's okay, how do I present this? It's the problem with a resume when you're padding it, and then you actually end up with stuff to fill it with. You're oh, what do I actually put now?
Yeah. My daughter is Dad, why aren't you excited? And I'm I am excited. This is what I sound like when I'm excited. She's I'd be dancing around and shouting. And I'm yeah, but it feels really weird talking about good things, because it just makes me feel like I'm bragging or something. And so this is excited as I get when I talk about stuff I've done.
I love it. I think just start getting t-shirts with your laurels on them and just wear them one each art check.
Yeah. I'm just going to print laurels on a 2x2 inch piece of fabric and hope I have enough to cover myself at some point.
I love it. Or you could manufacture a spinner bling thing with all your laurels and just go,
oh man. Yeah, but it feels really weird. I feel very uncomfortable saying it out loud. I feel uncomfortable sharing it on social media.
It's a good discomfort. Get used to it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm it's good, but I'm very aware that it could come off as I'm bragging or whatever, but leaning into it.
Yeah, lean into it.
Did something good, and it's getting results. So
it's a good thing, and actually, this is an interesting thing, but it's maybe not today, but that also is a really good sign of the people to surround yourself by. Generally, if you're getting something good and you announce it and people are gosh, man, you're just bragging, it's kind of a toxic response to somebody having something good happen.
Literally everyone that I've talked to at the beginning was stop downplaying it. That's awesome. Because I would tell them, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Or, they're no, it's a big deal. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Feels like I'm surrounded by the right type of people, or sycophants. I'm not sure which one, but I'm cool with either. So
I like it. All right. Well, Scott, what all did you get done?
Let's see. So I've still been doing a bunch of home improvements and things. So I think last time I was on, I talked about how I finished my kitchen cabinets except for the crown molding. So I did the crown molding over the cabinets, and then I put up lights. So it's under the cabinets and on top of the cabinets. I've got like a dimmer, and it lights up and everything. So the kitchen is now totally done. And then I painted my patio and I painted my front door. And I think I'm just going to, I think for the rest of the year, I'm just going to continue doing like home improvements, because these are things that I put aside. So I think right now I'm just going to concentrate on just sort of my freelance stuff that sort of pays the bills. And you know, when I have time, I'm going to work on some of my other stuff, my other personal projects. But I don't know, I'm kind of on a roll with this stuff. And I figure I'll do the home improvements, and then when I get close to towards the end of the year, then I'll be like, okay, I got all that done. Now it's time to get back into like my personal projects and all that kind of stuff, and start the year off like that. So that's kind of what I've been doing. I did do this though. I don't know if you can see that little baby Yoda.
Nice.
I do this guy. So I've actually got a store signing coming up at Surprise Comics again on Saturday. So I figured I wanted to do something that maybe for a little promotion to get people to, hey, I'd like to get some original sketches. So I did that sort of example, and I did film it. And I'll probably do a video, like an exclusive Patreon, showing the process of that. So I did that. And was there anything else I did? You know, the usual, did my video and everything like that. But yeah, that's about it.
That's awesome. I like that baby Yoda.
Sweet.
I think we should have just a Mandalorian segment every Monday at the end of each show. Sorry. Josh, what did you get done?
All right. So I mocked up the cover. Like, so this, like, there's like these middle covers. Like, it's hard to explain, but it's like when you see the book, every 32 pages or so are going to be divided with like a fake cover. And so this is going to be the third one of those, just to be consistent. Let me see if I can also share this. So this is the progress I've made on kind of starting to ink it. And then we'll rough pencils and stuff, and we'll see how that goes. So
cool.
So did you decide on a different name? Did you decide on 3 stories or
2 stories? Yeah, my thumbnail.
It said 3 stories.
Yeah, so my thumbnail, I screwed up on that and then scratched it out. Luckily it was a thumbnail. So I was like 3 story, and then I was like, oh my gosh, vacation's gotten in my brain.
Yeah, because I was like, I didn't know there were 3 stories. I thought there were only 2, but maybe there's one that I didn't know about. So
yeah.
Okay.
So this is the first. This is just going to be for that section, and then that last section of stories, and then I got to get into like actually padding out the book, like coming up with interiors, like page numbers, like the book interior, book design, all that fun stuff. So yeah, but I feel like I got over my little hurdle, I think, from the last art check where I wasn't kind of feeling it. And it's just the old tried and true method of just like sitting down and doing the work, which I think tends to work. So, and then finished vocals for recording. So now we're just in the mixing stage, which is kind of fun. So
awesome.
That too. Yep. So challenges. Let's get into that. What were your challenges this week, Cory?
My challenges this week were that I was on the road. So I wasn't at my house. I didn't bring my computer, and I was at the in-laws' house most of the time. And also everything took longer because there were several like whiteout blizzards that I was driving through. So we put about 700 miles on the car driving in blizzards. Maybe that's probably about 600. So anyway, it's a lot to drive in because you have to drive slowly and stuff. So, and then just other car troubles, but we are back to being a 2-car family because we got the other one fixed. And that's pretty
Yay.
much it. Yeah, so I don't have to walk to work anymore, which is nice. But now I can't get my snowblower to start, so I'm still shoveling my driveway by hand. So, yeah. So anyway, yeah, so just time-consuming stuff. And then because we had to rearrange the garage, I had to build a bunch of shelving and assemble things and move stuff. And I'm selling garbage from our garage on Facebook Marketplace and all the little nitpicky things that just make everything take forever. Yeah, so.
Nice. And have you ever used, just out of curiosity, like Facebook Marketplace? Is that a good way to do it rather than like an old school garage sale?
Oh, I will never do an old school garage sale. I absolutely refuse. Just everything about that makes me want to punch people in the throat. There's just, yeah. So Facebook Marketplace, you snap a picture of it with your phone. It's like Craigslist, I do it on Craigslist sometimes. Snap a picture with your phone. For some reason, everybody gets on at like 8:45 at night. So it could be there all day. They're all going to ignore it until like you sit down to relax. And then I answer a bunch of questions and it was sold within 20 minutes and list the next thing. So it's fine. I don't know.
That's awesome.
I hate Facebook, but it's good for, random crap.
Yeah, I'm going through a garage cleaning right now, so that's why I'm asking, because I'm curious. I might have to kind of indulge in that as well.
Yeah. I'll give you a rule: never hold anything for anyone. Just if they, because I did this a couple of years ago when I was doing the same thing, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'll take it," and so then I would turn people away. And then that person would never show up. So I just tell everyone, I don't, they're like, somebody was like, "Hey, can I pick this up tomorrow?" I'm like, if it's still here, I'm just going to take the first person's money that comes to my door. I'm not holding it for anybody. Yeah. And people get kind of annoyed with that, but that's my rule. The first person to put money in my hand gets the thing. I don't even care. Nothing else.
Yeah.
So
that's nice.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm like a 75-year-old man when it comes to selling my stuff. Very strict rules, and I want you off my lawn as quickly as possible.
I like it. I actually like that. Cool. All right. What about you, Scott? Challenges?
Geez, I really can't think of anything other than the fact, but like I said, I kind of came to peace with the fact that I'm probably not going to get much of my personal projects done because I'm just doing the home improvements and things like that. The other thing I forgot to mention, I did get all my Christmas lights and all my decorations up, so that was kind of good. And other than I'm trying to think. Usually like with the home improvement stuff, there's always like things that don't work. Like like I didn't know how to do the crown molding, and I did it wrong, and I had to figure out how to cut. So, but that's the great thing about YouTube. I just went on YouTube and saw a video of the guy showing how to do it, and now I know how to do it. So, but I can't think of any real major. I mean, the biggest for me right now, I think the biggest challenge is going to be this week, and that's going to be like my ex-wife is starting this new job, so I've got to take my kids to school every single day this week, which is going to cut into all the other stuff, which also kind of led to the thing like I'm not going to get my personal projects done. So, but then they'll be on break. So, and then I don't know. My son got his driver's license, so hopefully, once he gets a job and he can afford insurance, then he can drive himself, and I won't have to worry about it. So that's
awesome. That's kind of a huge thing.
Yeah,
I know you've been trying for that for a bit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Awesome.
My 10-year-old told me we were on a frozen yogurt date tonight, and she told me, "Dad, I'm so excited to get my driver's license and go out with my friends whenever I want. And maybe I'll meet like an older guy and like he could take me out and stuff." And I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
What? You're never going to meet an older guy. I will kill anyone. Also, you're 10. That's a long ways away. Just have yogurt with me and be happy with that right now, you weirdo.
Wow, that's heavy. Oh man.
She was like, I'm not talking about like super old. I'm just talking to like, if I'm 14 and he's 16, I'm like, nope, that's not happening. Anyway, sorry. It's just a weird freak out moment when you mentioned driver's license.
Well, it's a little scary that it's paired with older men. that would equally freak me out. So
yeah.
Wow. Well, there's a challenge. Let's see. So for me, the main thing's just been a lot of like family stuff, like tons of family stuff. Getting all the Christmas stuff around our house set up. And just like day stuff, and then fighting my kind of obsession with like guitars and stuff right now. So that's been kind of interesting, but I do feel like I kind of made some headway just by like sitting down and doing the work and realizing like, I don't know, having moments. I think those important times of like being like, do I want to be the guy who like has Christmas decorations up and that's it, or do I want to be somebody with like a graphic novel finished at some point in my lifetime? So like, you know what I mean? It's like I have to occasionally with personal projects like that was a challenge for me, but I feel like this week I've overcome it a little bit. And then on a physical level, like I couldn't work out for a bit. I got bit by like some weird spider on the arm, and it like took like the skin came off on like part of it. So I don't know what kind of spider it was. I didn't really see it, but yeah, so that took me out for a little bit. But other than that, just typical stuff. So yeah, but now for me, it's just more like trying to stay focused, and I think my computer froze possibly. So yeah,
we can still hear you.
Okay, good. But that's basically pretty much it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So plans.
Victor, we have not discussed Mandalorian yet, but we probably will towards the end. I'm guessing, knowing us, because we're a bunch of nerds.
Yeah, I just showed my Baby Yoda drawing though that I did.
Oh yeah, you should show it again for Victor. Check that out. Yeah, there's that Baby Yoda. All right. Plans.
Yeah, so I don't know. I plan to get back going on stuff. So I'm trying to keep up with man, that sounds so weird and prideful and braggy. But I'm trying to keep up with like some sort of organizational structure for what's going on with all of this stuff. And some of these festivals are starting to reach out to me, and some of them are asking if I'm coming, and I've got to figure all that stuff out. So I've got to come up with a better organizational system than I have. And then I also would like to, I wrote the script for this animation that I've kind of just been toying with. I have the dialogue done. I want to kind of tighten that up and record that. And I don't know if I'll be able to finish the animation this week, because I'm trying to do like a quick and dirty thing. Like if you look at what I've got, which I can't pull up right now, like I'm covering mouths, or I'm doing shots that are like intentionally not showing things, like I'm going to do that anime thing where when somebody starts talking, you see them start talking, but then you cut to the people reacting or listening so that you don't have to animate the hard stuff. I'm trying to see if I can shortcut this and make it really fast. So I'm putting a goal of, right. Yeah. A lot of I've even stolen this exact shot from Gendo Ikari there. Anyway, yeah. So I have a goal of trying to get this thing done in 2 weeks, because my goal is to, And I almost wish I could get it done faster. I almost want to get it done faster. Reason is it is a intentional and direct stab at Google and Facebook and a lot of the tech companies right now that are doing stuff because I'm trying to paint a picture for the FTC, and their comment section closes on December 9th. And so I don't know. I might even do like super limited animation where almost nothing moves. I don't know. I've got to figure that out, but I'm going to try to go as fast as I can on this thing so I can get it out. Because today is the 2nd, so I want to have a few days before it's irrelevant.
Nice.
So we'll see. I don't know. I'm pushing. Yeah. So
that's ambitious.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. It could be awful, but I'm not planning on doing anything with it other than just putting it up on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and seeing if it has some legs. So
no, I don't think it'll be awful, and I definitely think just with your track record, you'll often say things that sound a little ambitious and possibly even like impossible, and you make it happen. So I'm actually kind of eager to see you do that once again, because I think it's going to be awesome. So let's see. Any other things to your plans? That seems like a lot. Okay, good.
That's it.
Because I'd feel pretty bad if it was more than that. I'd be like, and I give up. No. So for me, my plan is going to be to try to make some headway in penciling this cover, and like I'd like to be at least at like a semi close to a halfway point by Wednesday, and we'll just kind of see how that goes, because this kind of thing it's kind of based on like Victorian book designs, and so it takes a while because there's a lot of lines and filigree and stuff, but we shall see. Dang
those Victorians.
I know, but I love it. It looks so cool. So anyhow,
Scott, how about your plans?
I am going to work on my family Christmas card. I know it's the 2nd, which, we're already in December, which, if I was smart, I'd already have it done. But actually, if I start on it now and if I get it done this week, then I'm probably ahead of what I usually am, because I usually don't get it done until maybe like the 3rd, like maybe the week before Christmas, and send it out. So I'd like to get it, I'd like to get it done a little earlier than that. So that's probably the main thing I'm really working on, other than, freelance stuff and everything.
Cool. And I hope you'll do videos with that too, because I think there's a lot of people who would be really interested in making a family Christmas card themselves. And
I didn't even think about that, but yeah.
And if you have it out around Christmas, that'd be a bad idea either. Anyway.
Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea.
That's cool though. And I remember last year's card. You make pretty awesome Christmas cards.
Thank you.
So. Cool. All right. So should we dive into the topic?
Sure. Do you want me to kick it off, or are you still kind of doing the intros for the for like the podcast, Cory? And
let me
it to me, or how do you want?
Let me play the intro, and then you can just kick it off after the intro. Mainly, it just gives us a visual so that we can cut this part off for the podcast. So we'll be back in a moment.
All right, so today's topic is going to be a continuation of a video that I put up just today on my YouTube channel, which is about, are you a starter or are you a finisher? And one of the reasons why this kind of came up, I forgot, somebody had a quote, and I forgot exactly what the quote was, but so I don't know why I mentioned it. But anyway, so I started to think, well, am I a starter or a finisher? And then I was like, well, how can you finish something if you haven't started? And then I started to realize, I think where this is coming from is probably people like, say, probably more along the lines with Josh and Cory, where either they work, either like Josh is an art director, and Cory is a professor, but it makes more sense for teams, I think. So when you're, it makes sense to get people that are really good at starting something and team them up with people that are really good at finishing. But as solo entrepreneurs, that's a little different. So I kind of started to think, well, because I'd like to think, and I know that there's, I know that there's different levels and everything, and I always like to think that I'm both. But when I started to really look at it, there's a lot of, I think I'm more of a starter. I enjoy the starting process more than I probably enjoy the finishing process. So that just led me to kind of reflect and think, well, what do I need to do to be a little more of a finisher? So but I thought it would be good to kind of continue that conversation with you guys, because it's something I would like to get feedback from you guys and kind of figure out what you guys are. Are you look at yourself as starters or finishers, or have you thought about this? Or so I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic because I have a business background. Lately, it's kind of shifted into an art background, but I came solidly from business and marketing, and there's a thing called kill your founder, which is a common business tactic that basically means that the type of individual who starts a successful business is the wrong type of personality to grow and maintain a business that has succeeded. And so you actually need to, they call them serial entrepreneurs, those people that start good ideas, they get them off the ground. They're very into it while it's, a challenge and growth and everything else. But once it needs to get past kind of the adolescent stage, and it just needs to be maintained, and you move into like a slow growth stage because you've captured a significant portion of the market share or whatever, usually that type of person starts to destroy the business. But if you keep them in charge, they continue to try to do the same things that grew it fast, and it actually is detrimental to a lot of like business practices. And so it's an interesting thing the theory is, at least in business, that there are different personality types, and that there are those that start things are not good at being somebody who maintains in a slow growth setting. As far as me personally, I wonder if we're talking about side projects and being like solo entrepreneurs and owning your own business and being like the sole proprietor of like an illustration shop or animation shop or something. When it comes to projects, if you include the marketing and promotion of that project after it's finished, then I am awful at that.
I brought that same point up. When is a project truly finished? Is it finished when it's a physical thing and you have it, or is it finished when you get it out there and let people know about it and put it out on the market? Which usually I'm exactly like you then, Cory, because I use my comic maker toolkit as an example, whereas I put it out there and it's done okay because it's these marketplaces that I'm kind of using. They're kind of promoting it and everything. But as far as on my side, I could make a lot more money because I get a bigger percentage if I can sell it off of my website. But I haven't put any promotion out there or anything like that. And I don't know why that is, because obviously it's proven to be successful in these other places. So if I run some Facebook ads or do a video or on Instagram,
I know exactly why that is, for me at least, because I hate it.
Yeah.
Like I don't
know if I hate it. Maybe I do hate it. I don't know. But I'm interested in marketing. I like listening to marketing podcasts. I like to learn about it. And I don't know.
It's just like science and quantum physics, but when it comes to the execution of science and quantum physics, I have no interest. You know what I mean? Like I can listen to it all day.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like executing mathematical equations that it takes to do quantum physics, I'm like, I'm out.
And for me, I wonder if that's a very similar thing, because I love a lot of really interesting things about engineering and science and neurology and whatever, and chemistry and all that type of stuff. But as soon as somebody's like, solve this equation, I'm like, I'm going to go draw something. This is dumb. I don't want to do that. And I wonder if it's kind of the same thing, because I enjoy all of the type of problems that you have to solve in the middle of producing a project. I love coming up with the idea. I love figuring out the best way to execute that idea. I love planning out the different compositions and coming up with the best way to tell that story. I love the feeling that I get as I finish different milestones of those things. But then when the project is complete, I can control all of that. I can't control the success in the marketplace. I can't control whether or not people buy it to a certain extent, because it's other people's choice. And so as soon as I get into this promotion thing, I think for me, it puts me into two different things that I'm striking out on. One is my imposter syndrome just goes into overdrive, and I'm like, I'm faking this anyway. And so everybody's going to hate it. I might as well not do anything with it and just do the next project, because that's the part that I enjoy. And the other thing is I can control one half of that equation, but the other half of that equation is other people deciding to do something. And I refuse to manipulate and coerce because of just some personal principles that I have. And so that leaves me with persuasion, which is a lighter thing. And it's more like I kind of put it out there. And so for me, those two things go against me. Is I am very uncomfortable talking about things that I've made as it relates to, and you should spend money on it. And so that kind of self-promotion is hard. And then on the other side of that equation, I don't like doing a lot of the stuff that I have to do to get it out there. It's not that I mind rejection or anything, but I don't like writing the emails. I don't like doing the blog posts. I don't like, segmenting the ads. And I don't like, there's so many different interesting problems that I could be solving if I just started another project. And so if you're talking about finishing projects, I'm a starter and a finisher. If you're talking about promotion after the project is done, I have seriously considered budgeting for, some sort of digital assistant or something that could go out and do all that stuff for me.
Yeah. If I get to the point where I bring in enough income where I could hire somebody like on a freelance basis or something to do that, I would love to do that. And obviously I think it would be a worthy investment, because if you can find the right person, because if it's something you don't really care to do, obviously, assuming, if you find the right person, then you're not going to lose money. You're going to make money, because they're going to, be able to do that kind of promotion. So yeah, I don't know, but I just haven't got to that point yet where I guess I can justify, hiring somebody to do that. But
yeah. And I don't know, it's like finding the right person too, because, I'd love to have a publicist and you can have a cut of my profits. That's fine. But I don't know finding that person is just another step that I'm just like, I just don't want to do that.
Yeah. And I've tried it before, and I did not find the right person. Like for a while I decided I was going to do murals, and I was going to do the, murals, and these kind of sort of like 3D murals where I would do the foam sculptures on the walls and have it kind of pop out and do or whatever, just really cool, kids room type stuff. And I sent out some, postcards and some ads just looking for somebody to help me promote it. And, had a couple people said they were interested in and everything. And then they just didn't. Of course, that was more on a commission basis. Maybe if I had money up front to pay, something in addition to that commission. But yeah, it just all kind of fell through, and people didn't do what they said they could do, or just, so yeah, one of these days maybe I'll find the right person, but I don't know.
For me, like it's interesting to hear the take on it, like the marketing as being a weakness, because I think we could all probably, I mean, I definitely relate to that. Like I once I'm finished with the project, I don't feel like doing that extra mile afterward. Like I hate it. I feel like a huckster.
Yeah.
Even conventioning, it's like I like the social aspect, but there's a deep part of me that really doesn't like it. Like I would like to be able to just stamp it, say it's done, and have it just float out into the world and for people to discover it, you know? So I relate to that. But to me, when I hear like starter or finisher on a project, I think of it in context of just like, you know, like finishing the project. Like,
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of artists that are really great at starting, but not really finishing projects.
Oh,
and
yeah.
what I found is that actually, and this might sound harsh, and I hope it doesn't sound too harsh, but I found from leading teams, I'll take finishers over starters any day. Like if you're going to start something and not commit and finish, I have no use for it. Like the only thing I can use on a professional level as an art director is finished art. That's it. I mean, like you can, and most of the people I know who are good at finishing are just as good at starting. But there's a lot of people I've come across that are great at starting and terrible at finishing, and that's the weird thing. So I find that people who are really good at finishing tend to have a talent for starting as well. Maybe it's not as strong. But they can kind of work around that. That's teachable. I feel like if you can't finish, that's going to be a real problem. And that's just like, now there are people who have like skill at like spaghetti at the wall kind of things. Like, you know, those intro conversations in like a marketing context where it's like, okay, what are we going to do? And kind of some people are way more comfortable with the ambiguity of that, like the blank slate. And I definitely think there are people who are more talented at that than others. But the thing I will say is I think that I definitely would consider myself a finisher to sometimes my own detriment. I don't do well at like false starts on projects. And part of it's because I hate the idea of wasted time. And I can use time and stuff like that, but I really hate the idea of wasted time. So if I'm gonna like, and this can be a weakness too, because a lot of artists will kind of like sketch in their sketchbooks for fun and do a lot of fun drawing, and I tend to only do project-based stuff. So I'm like, okay, what's gonna get me further on my project? And if I don't have a project, I don't feel a connection to what I'm working on because it just feels like wasted time. So that could be a weakness, but it's been a real benefit to me professionally, because I've had a lot of friends who like, for instance, when I was younger and I applied for the Zarek, that comic I was working on, I started a comic. I had like 4 friends start comics at the same time, and they didn't finish them.
Yeah.
And they had the same goal, like, oh, we'll get the Zarek, and none of them finished.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I don't know. I guess I'm getting at like, I do feel like I feel like I'm a finisher. I'm not always finishing well, but I'm always I tend to finish, and to me, like, that's been pretty reliable, like for career wise, because like, once again, I don't tend to have uncompleted projects. Like I don't have a lot of fantasy things that I've started and kind of have been false starts.
Yeah. Well, my brother-in-law, he's got an MBA and he works for some bigger companies, and I was just talking to him about it because it's in a drastically different field, and I'm always curious at what people are doing. And he said, you know what what I really bring to the table is I'm not necessarily the best, but I do what I'm supposed to do. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, whatever it is, I do it. I finish everything on my task list every time. If I get assigned something, I will always do it. And I thought, and he said, there are people out there that are better salesmen than me. There are people out there that are better managers than I am. There are people out there that are better whatever, but they don't do everything that they're supposed to do. I do it all. He said, that's what I bring to the table. That's what I bring to the organization. And you brought up an interesting point, that because I'm in a unique situation in the last 6 years. I've gotten an interesting kind of like bird's eye view of what it's like to be in your early 20s. From the perspective of somebody who's approaching 40. And it's interesting because I don't remember whether or not I was like that or not, but I do see some fascinating things. And one thing that you mentioned is ambiguity is like kryptonite to somebody in their early 20s. Like most people that I've seen, people that are rare and exceptional, are not like this, but most people between the ages of like 18 to 25, if they are given unclear goals and there's not like a step-by-step set of instructions to follow, basically ambiguity, they have no idea what to do. They're paralyzed by indecision. And if you want to take a creative who's 22 and completely make them lose their mind, give them limitless options and no clear direction other than, I want you to succeed. Do something awesome. If you just say do something awesome and there's no limitations to that, you would think, because I'm paying some of these people, like they're working at an agency that's a student-run agency. I'm not paying them, but they're being paid in this situation. And it's like, okay, we've got some downtime. Let's do some self-promotion. And for the self-promotion, you can make anything that you want that is awesome. And that's it. And they will spend months spinning their wheels, not starting anything because there's no, because up until that point in time in our lives, at least in America, every assignment that you get is like, here are the 15 steps to succeed. Here's the rubric. Here's what you're shooting for. Here are past examples of other people that have done this thing. Mm-hmm. Here's this well-trodden path that's already been blazed for you, and it's been paved. And all you have to do is just meander in that direction long enough, and you'll succeed. And so this idea of shaking out of that ambiguity and having initiative in the face of ambiguity is huge. But the other thing is, I do see a lot of people that start. I see very few people that finish. So it's like this narrowing field of like, there's everyone, and the majority of them are never going to start anything. If there's an ambiguous whatever, I'd say probably 95% of human beings will just not do anything. Then you take that 5%, and I would say probably about 70% of those that start something won't finish it. And so I think being a finisher, you can't be a finisher without being a starter. And I think both are impressive, but it goes like everyone, and then starters, and then inside of the starters, there's those that finish the project.
So the other interesting thing is, like, Scott, you were describing that, like, you were talking about it and you didn't see yourself as a finisher. But then I'm like thinking about it. And I'm like, I mean, there's not, like, I can count on my hands of my friend group, the amount of people who actually started a comic, finished it, published it. Like, and I mean that, like, even within the hundreds community, if you take the hundreds and then you think of all the hundreds, how many have actually done a full comic, start to finish, had it published, put it out? That actually narrows. Like, so there's people who finished the challenge yet never finished a comic.
Right.
And you've done like 4, and then you're on, like, you're going to be finishing it. So, like, to me, with projects, I think you are a finisher. I think you're right. I think all of us are really weak at, you know what it is? I think maybe we all share being weak at finishing something we could care less about.
Well,
Meaning, like those things where it's like I'm interested in marketing. I hate doing marketing.
So
Right.
for example, I mowed 85% of my lawn and then I just stopped. My lawn right now is under 2 feet of snow, and there's 15% of it that is just not mowed.
Yeah. So and kind of to go off of that, yeah. I mean, as far as like art projects, I think, you know, I'm pretty good at finishing and everything. But and that's why, and I, you know, if you would have just asked me without really thinking about it, I would say, yeah, I'm a starter and I'm a finisher. But then I really started thinking, I'm like, well, you know, first of all, what do I like to do the best? And I think I like starting because I've got all these different ideas for comics and stuff, and so many ideas, and that I'll never get around to doing all of them. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I like, oh, here's and one of the things I really like is just I like just coming up with a cool concept, you know, for a story or whatever. But to take that concept and kind of, you know, actually have it play out as a story, that's not, it's not as interesting in coming up with cool ideas. So if I could come up with these cool ideas and maybe turn them over to somebody else and have them do it and just kind of see what happens with them, that'd be cool. Because like I said, there's no way I'll be able to do all these different ideas.
Yeah.
I have. So part of it, that's what I mean by I think I enjoy the starting more. Now I've got ideas like beyond like Young and the Dead that I want to do, but I can't think about that because I have to finish kind of one kind of thing at a time. But
which I would argue makes you a finisher,
right.
Because just the discipline of being able to say, yes, I've got plenty of ideas, but I am going to focus. Because you could have 40, you know, you could have the first 3 pages of 40 different comics.
Yeah, but like with you and your lawn, I mean, I think when it comes to like art projects and stuff, I'm good at finishing and everything. But in other aspects of my life, like one of the examples I used was that I mean, I'm not a big reader as far as like reading books. Like, I mean, I'll listen to books on tape and everything, but for whatever reason, I'll start a book and I think I've maybe finished like maybe 2 or 3 books in my lifetime. I mean, I'll start them, and I mean, I'll get like to the very last chapter, and I don't know what it is. Maybe some kind of weird fear of finishing it for some reason, but I'll just like I won't finish it, and I don't know why that is, but it's just that happens all the time. So I
think you're on to something because like when you, as you're describing like what you like, it to me juxtaposes with my personality, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just like for me, I like having a problem. Like I like the problem being presented and then working through it. So like to me, I do enjoy like the spitballing process, but I really like when it starts getting into the weeds. Like I actually like the point where you're like, well, okay, what's the story arc? Like how's it going to work? How's it going to be different? What's the thing?
audio books.
I love that. Yeah, I didn't even blink because I relate to that. I think I might be the last generation to relate to that.
I am going to completely sabotage any good audio that could come from this podcast. Sorry.
But to me, it's like I really do enjoy that point where there's a conundrum and I have to kind of work through it. I like the hashing it out part. I like the part where it's working it out rather than the inception part. I actually don't enjoy as much. Like it's necessary, but it's like I feel like it's like once again, like I said about my stuff, like I don't like waste, and I feel like ideas, I don't know, ideas are a dime a dozen, and so it's like but like the realization of those ideas are the tough part. But I do enjoy the fantasy part. I like the fantasizing and being able to invent stories. But I think what I like the most is that moment of finish. Like, I don't feel a lot of fulfillment out of like coming up with an idea that like I then hand off. I really do enjoy coming up with an idea, like seeing it through, hashing out all those little problems, and then seeing that final thing. So I don't know. I think to me, I get fulfillment out of that, but it's hard to say because if it's somebody else's thing, I don't know. I don't know where that goes. Because I don't like working on other people's stuff.
Yeah.
I have to. I think you kind of have to do that to do commerce. And I can get into it and kind of psych myself out and like try to find the interesting element of whatever it is. But it is hard to kind of, I don't know. I guess my point is I'm feeling like we're close, but I do feel like maybe we're on opposite spectrums in that sense. Cause I do think I tend to enjoy the finish part more than the start. And it sounds like you enjoy the start, although you are a finisher. I don't know if that makes sense, but I do think there's a slight difference. The way we're wired.
I definitely enjoy the sense of accomplishment when you finish something, and I enjoy the process, along the way as well. But I guess the part I think I love the most is probably just coming up with like ideas and
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean,
I hate that part.
But that's
really interesting.
That's why
I'm so bad at it.
Yeah. I
don't know that I'm great at it. Like I always look at like Jake Parker, and he's got all these just brilliant ideas, and and he'll see through most of them. I mean, maybe some of the stuff you don't even know because he doesn't put it out there. But I mean, just in his sketches and things like that, there's always just like, oh man, I wish I would have thought of doing something like that. But I mean, so there's definitely people that are way better than me. But I still aspire to be great at coming up with ideas. And sometimes I struggle with it or whatever. But every once in a while I'll get a good idea. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. So,
I like where this is going, though, because even you mentioning Jake Parker, like I like Jake Parker, but the one thing about Jake Parker's art that like, and this just goes to, I think, the way I'm wired for like connecting with something. I like seeing a full story, like fully actualized. So I'll see like his concept and I'll be like, oh, I want to see the book. Like I want to see what he does with that. Like, and so it kind of drives me nuts because I see a lot of really cool, like kind of potential. Right. And I don't really see it go anywhere other than the image, which is cool for fantasizing. But it's like, to me, the artist I get really like, part of why I'm obsessed with Chris Ware, right, is he'll like meticulously, like one image isn't going to give you the concept. It's like, he'll meticulously build this whole world and do it just laboriously, like panel by panel. And that's the stuff that like I connect with. Whereas like someone like Jake Parker, I actually have trouble connecting with because I'm like, well, it's just one image. I want to see the whole sequence and like the whole thing kind of work out. So I am kind of, I don't know, I am kind of feeling like there's a slight difference in although I think I think I have no doubt you're better. Like, honestly, I think you're better at finishing projects than I probably have been.
I think because you take on bigger projects and I take on smaller projects. So It seems like I finish more but you put in so much more work that it just takes you way longer to finish something because you're doing just a super intense long form project.
Yeah, but I do think there's a difference in like our interest in the sense of even like the art, because like for me, the panels are not as interesting as the whole series of panels. Like I want to see every page to the final.
Right.
And I enjoy that, like that process more than the inception of it, It's very fascinating to me. I don't know. I don't know, Cory, am I crazy? You feel
it's interesting. It's interesting that you bring that up, Josh, because I feel like we're kind of, if you were to look at like Josh on the left and me in the middle and Scott on the right, we have this spectrum.
It's almost like
kind of
out that way.
But it's funny because you mentioned that you like to see a fully realized thing, which is entertaining to me because when I did my 4-page story for the anthology, you kept saying like, I want to see the whole story. I want to see the whole book. And for me, I liked the idea, and the story even was intentionally vague enough to where I think my daughter was like, what just happened? And I'm like, well, there's hints there. I know what happened, and I'm trying to see if I can hint to that. But I mean, I was trying to allude to this larger world and this bigger story but still have a completed 4-page story. And you were like, so when are you going to spend the next 5 years putting this book together? And I was like, I might do a couple pages at a time, like in these short stints, because I think I do like finishing stuff. The idea of working on a project for 5 years until I finish it is one of the most terrifying things I can think of.
Oh, hang on a second. I want to address the chats. Like, I know Jake Parker finishes books, and like, to me, like I guess my point was the stuff of Jake Parker that I connect with would be the finished books, and not so much the post of like the long, like sweeping panel that has all sorts of potential for another book. Well, a good example too is like the Fan Brothers. Like, we interviewed Eric Fan on our channel, and it's like the Fan Brothers, they are great illustrators, and I've always liked their illustrations. But for me, like, the point that I really was excited for them was when there was a fully realized book. Like, I've always liked their illustrations, but I've never connected to their illustrations more than when I saw it in sequence, like one of their little windows, like fully realized, like, so that's what I was kind of getting at. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and it also goes back to what I was saying before with you can only do so much. So I mean, whereas somebody like Jake Parker has finished a lot of projects, but he's also got all these just like one sketch that he puts out there, and you can look at this sketch and the idea and like there's something that could come out of this, but I mean, he doesn't have the time to create a world or create a story out of every single concept he has. So that's kind of what I'm talking about, where like, I've got all these ideas and I'll just never have time to do them all, but some of them I will.
So let me ask you this, Scott. What do you think of illustrators turned writers? How there are several that I can think of right off the top of my head where they start a super successful like comic book illustration career where they're illustrating, and then they become illustrating their own stories, and then you have Scotty Young, for instance. I mean, he did one of the most popular Marvel series ever in the Wizard of Oz, and people were clamoring for more. And he's got more. And then he started writing, and he wrote Rocket Raccoon. He started writing all the stuff for other illustrators, and then just spent spent his illustration time doing one thing. So that's kind of an interesting thing. You see some people kind of move in that direction where they're like, I do have a limit to the amount of time that I can put pen to paper.
Yeah.
But I can still get a bunch of stories out and focus on just illustrating one of them and then do the rest.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a problem with that at all. And so, at some points sometimes I think to myself, I mean, that might be the only way I can get some of these ideas out there. But I kind of compare that to, I think of myself as an artist, but I do write and I do create and I do come up with ideas and stories and things like that. And sometimes I think to myself, well, am I moving too far away from the illustration? Because now I'm doing, when I'm creating like digital products or whatever, or things like that, it is kind of moving away from, being an illustrator.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wonder, am I kind of turning my back on being an illustrator, even though I draw every day, but it's not as much as, it's not all to me, I guess I consider myself more of a creative. I mean, I'm an illustrator, I'm a designer, I'm a cartoon, whatever, but as a creative as a whole, I just like to create things. And sometimes those things don't have anything to do with illustration. Sometimes they're creating things for other people that they can use to illustrate or whatever, or just making videos talking about illustration or whatever. To me, that's all, I enjoy all that kind of stuff. So, but there are times where I think to myself, I don't illustrate as much as I used to. I'm doing all these other things. So, I mean, there could be a point where maybe that's where I don't even do as much illustration as I'm doing now. And in some ways that'll kind of be sad, but in some ways it's just like I guess a progression. So I don't really have anything against people for like artists who kind of decide to do more in the way of writing.
So
and that kind of stuff.
Like okay, so you think of like somebody like Terry Gilliam, right? Terry Gilliam's like this guy who started out as just like this kind of artsy animator who was doing bits with Monty Python, and then went on to just kind of create these insane films.
Yeah.
Right? So is he a director or an animator? Like, what is he?
Right. Yeah. Like, even if you look, I don't know if you guys have ever seen any of like early, like some of the Terminator concept art that James Cameron did. I mean, he's a great illustrator, but he kind of got into the filmmaking part, and I don't know if he illustrates at all anymore. There's a lot of people like that, and it's kind of weird. All that talent they had as an illustrator, and to my knowledge, he doesn't really do anything with that anymore. But he creates great movies. So yeah, I don't know.
I kind of think there's something that unites us, like us three, which goes a little further than illustration. Although illustration is like a version of this, which is storytelling. I think we like storytelling.
Yeah.
I think we like the process of storytelling, and I think that illustration is one of the ways we do storytelling, but it's not necessarily like the period at the end of the sentence. So I think, to me, I understand what you're saying about potentially like writing or creating stories that other people then kind of see and realize. It's such a weird thing because I like that idea, but all the guys I look at, like the guys that are on my list, like my heroes, are the ones who did everything. Like, so like Spiegelman, like I love Spiegelman, and part of why I love Spiegelman, he's not the best illustrator, he's not the best writer, but when you pair the two and you see his vision like completely made by him, it's like I don't think there's a lot of graphic novels that match that. Craig Thompson's another guy, Chris Ware, like there's like the thing that
Eisner.
Yeah, but the thing I love about that group is it's a small group. There's not a lot of people who do that. And I think it's partially because it's really hard to do. And like you were saying, you literally only have so much time. So like that's why Ware is always on my list. I'm like, I frankly just do not comprehend. Like if you look at the size of Rusty Brown, how did one person in a lifetime create that on top of Jimmy Corrigan? Like if you just stack those two books, it's like that's more pages than most Marvel artists draw in like five years, on like a salary. Like how, and that's just drawing or like penciling or inking, but much less penciling, inking, coloring, writing. It's baffling. It's so like to me, but I'm not opposed to the idea of like to me, I don't think that would make you not a finisher, in the sense of like, if you're still writing and you're finishing your story, I'd still consider that like finishing. Because to me, when I think about like starters versus finishers, I think of all the people I know who are really great at starting a project. I don't know. I think of like Kickstarters that get kickstarted and then don't deliver. Yep. You know what I mean? That's what I think of as starters. I think people who like come up with a great idea that gets kickstarted, it gets funded, and then just like doesn't ever get done.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. It's all super fascinating, because you brought up another thing that I'm thinking through this. I have a huge problem. I want to do every part of the project. I want, like, I know nothing of music theory or composition. Like, I know nothing about it. I mean, like, what I don't know about music would, stun an elephant. You know, I mean, it's just like, and yet in that animation, I was like, I'll just do it myself. I'll just write my own song. Like, that's just how I want to do everything. And like, it was actually really hard for me to like reach out to people and be like, would you like a portion of this project and jump in on this? And like, I'm super glad that I did, but like the idea, and I know that this is a perfectly acceptable industry practice to like use stock, whether it's stock photography or stock vector or stock illustration or whatever, like it's a very common thing to do. And if you do it legally and you license it correctly, it's fine. But for me, every time somebody's like, I remember having a conversation where we were developing this program and we are trying to decide how much we're going to teach about stock. And somebody turned to me and they said, you'd be great at this because, vector stock like is some of the most profitable stock that you can get out there. And I said, what would you even make? And they said, well, just think of all the stock that you've bought. And I said, I don't buy stock. I just make whatever I need. For anything that I need, I will make it. And everybody in the room was like, that seems really inefficient. And I'm like, I'm not talking about efficiency. I'm talking about I'm the one that made it start to finish. It's all me. That's every project that I touch. I want to have one name on the credits.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't get a lot of them done.
Yeah, I get it.
4 projects a year instead of 30.
It's funny that you said you didn't watch my video because I went into this too. I talked about this too. So
I got to go watch it. It sounds like I agree with a lot of it.
I will say at my day job, I'm going to use stock any day, any second, whatever gets the job done efficiently, makes it look good, I'll do. But when it's my own personal work, like I never understand somebody on personal work using stock, because why wouldn't you want control over the entire thing?
But like, there are things that I don't make. For example, for some reason in my mind, it makes sense to purchase a font rather than do what Scott does, where he has literally made his own fonts, or do what you do, where you are literally hand lettering your comic. And I'm like, that just sounds horrible to me. And so I'm just going to buy a good one that works.
Yeah. Or like if you're making a comic and you have like an explosion that's really hard to draw, and there's this like awesome way to get free assets, like through, like you just go to Serkworks and just sign up for that mailing list, and you get like some pretty cool free assets that will save you time and will help you develop your own comics, like the Comic Maker Starter Kit. That might be the exception. Yeah. But but in general, I'm with you on the stock thing. But then
I'm going to call Cory out though, because I know like on the Newsy project, the background was stock.
Yep. But it wasn't. But you made me do that, and you were my employer. If you recall that process, I did a fairly significant amount of work on a background that I photo manipulated and stitched together myself. And then you were like, the client hates that. Okay. All right. Let's do this other thing. And I said, you're signing a check. So yes, I will agree with you.
Yeah. But I thought that what you had before was stock photos that you,
and
it started that way, but I manipulated it quite a bit in Photoshop.
That wasn't a personal project either. You know what I mean? That was a client, so it's a little different. But with a personal project, I think if I lived within 200 miles of a skyscraper, I would have gone and shot that stuff myself. But like, there's literally nothing but like 2-story buildings for hundreds of miles in any direction. And I'm not exaggerating. I would have. That background would have just been like a snowy flat landscape.
Right. It's like, look at all these fields of potatoes and wheat and barley. No, but anyway, yeah, I'm not saying I don't do it. I'm saying my natural inclination is to always try to make it myself, sometimes to my detriment, because it's like, why do I care about this part? Like I could just license this for like, a few bucks and it would save me tons of time. And so, yes, you're right to call me out. I do use stock. I cringe when I I cringe when I do.
Well, and one thing I will say is like the stuff that I got in design annuals never used stock. Like, and so that's kind of the catch is like, I think when you're, use stock if you have to, but when it comes to like personal projects, like why would you use stock?
Well, and I'll play devil's advocate against myself here. I know a lot of motion graphic artists that use stock in super interesting ways, and they'll take public domain images and cut them up. Like one I saw recently was a rap battle between George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, and they took the images from the money and then overlaid that across like a wireframe and like animated it. And so they didn't, there's like,
that's a little different.
No, but that's what I'm saying is I do feel like if you make something your own, that's different than just buying it, plopping it in there.
Yeah, no, I agree. Cool. I kind of feel like we're going at like a little over an hour. I think we've done a lot here though. So
yeah, I do want to point out Victor brought up Jason Brubaker, who is a huge inspiration to getting me into all of this stuff. I love that guy. He's great at a ton of things and has finished quite a few independent books on his own. So
yeah, I think we're all familiar with Jason Brubaker. So
yeah, he's done a lot of good stuff. And then TJ's saying a lot of really interesting things. I wish we could have gotten to all those comments, but she was saying that it feels like a lack of focus when you start counting finished products. But I do enjoy all of my creative distractions. And I think this might be a good way to kind of end. Like, I don't know that I'm going to pass a value judgment on people's goals. And if your goal is to enjoy what you're doing, and you're getting that fulfillment and that enjoyment without finishing things, that's great. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If your goal is to achieve something, become something, be known for something, that takes finishing. And if you don't finish, then you either need to readjust your production or readjust your goals. But I really don't think there's anything wrong with people just being like, I do this because I love it. It makes me feel good. And I think that's great. I love that type of thing. What really bothers me, though, is the people that are like, I want to be X. And then they don't do what they need to do to be known as X or to be paid to do X. It's like, stop saying that you want to be a children's book illustrator until you finish a children's book.
Yep.
Like, just don't tell me you want to be a comic book artist if you never finish any issues.
I want to bring up a little example from music. So like one of the weird things about me when I first picked up a guitar was I learned like 3 chords and then I started writing my own songs. And I'd been to all sorts of people when I started a band and we were playing all over the place who'd be like, oh, I like playing guitar too. And they'd play like a cover of like a Bush song or like the Nirvana song they learned. And I knew a few covers, but like I was bored with covers because I wanted to make stuff. Yeah. And I remember having this conversation with a bunch of guitarists, like, and this was when I was like, I'm not a really good guitarist. I never have been, but I have had that conversation with people where they're like, how did you record an album? Like, how do you play shows? How do you have a band? How do you write music? Like, how do you write your own stuff? That's crazy. You do it by just doing it instead of like just learning other people's songs and just doing covers and kind of dabbling at it. And it is Mandalorian time, but I do want to say like, there's a thing to be said for finishing stuff. And like, I've brought this up before on the show, but ooh, I love it.
We are just not going to let Josh finish the sentence tonight.
When I was in junior college, there's this guy who I knew who was like a fantasy author, and he was working on the epic fantasy book. And I've mentioned this before many times on here, but I think it's a good warning for everyone. And he was a big fan of like Tolkien and the Silmarillion. So he had created like this whole language and this whole world. And that guy's never finished that book. And he had like, he like was so excited to talk about the book he was working on. He'd like open his backpack and he had 50 different, diaries filled with like different dialects and characters and like this whole world he had built. And I've never seen that guy get anything out there. And so to me, it's like that there's a few Tolkiens. Please don't assume you're that person. Like there's something to be said for finishing stuff and getting it out there and actually finishing a story. And there is something comfortable and yet, damaging about just the idea of kind of playing at making this whole world. There's a fine line between like role playing and actually being a maker of things. And I think as a creator, you should be aware of that. Like if you want to role play, great. If you want to feel good about yourself, great. If you want to make stuff, that's a whole different ball game than like role playing and feeling good,
Yeah.
So yeah,
I agree. Okay.
All right, Mandalorian
time. All right. Before we do this, spoiler alert, spoilers. Turn back now. Spoilers ahead. I'm going to say the word spoilers several times.
Let's keep it brief. Let's just talk about our impressions of the last episode of Mandalorian.
The fact that it was basically 7 samurai.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. With only 2 samurais.
Right.
But that's and actually, I'll kind of tease this, even though it's a ways off. But I use that example, and now I kind of wish I wouldn't have pre-recorded it in my comic maker. I mean, my comic 101 kind of YouTube videos that I'm doing. But I talk about 7 Samurai, how that's sort of a tried and true story that's been told so many times, because it was 7 Samurai, and it was also Magnificent Seven,
Right.
Battle Beyond the Stars, Bug's Life, all those so
your local sheriff, there's a million.
Yeah. I mean, it's that story's been told time and time again. So, and I like that story.
Walking Tall.
Sorry.
But yeah, so I wasn't surprised. I mean, because as soon as I kind of realized, oh, it's a Western, but it's also, Lone Wolf and Cub. And then I kind of thought, I kind of expected that they would do something like that. My biggest, I guess, I would say, out of the episodes that I've seen so far, I think this might be the weakest one. And I think it's just because I think you needed longer to tell that story than 40 minutes, because the whole love kind of thing, and I mean, that needs to be something that, and I'm just kind of worried that this is going to kind of be an adventure of the week, like Incredible Hulk type thing.
I'm 100% in for that.
It's not that I don't like the old Incredible Hulk series, but I don't mind some of the episodes being like that, but I don't know. I mean, I would rather, with certain ones, maybe stay in that place for a couple episodes. And I know, but then again, we only have 8 episodes, so I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence, but
because the cool thing about it though is like they're taking all of the Western tropes and they're just knocking them off one by one.
Yeah.
And yet we still have kind of some throughput of some story, because like he literally said about Baby Yoda, which, can we please get a name?
The child.
Name the kid, right? He's like, watch the kid, take care of the kid. Like, can we give him a name?
Like, I don't know what, like, going back to Westerns, in Shane, did that movie, did the kid have a name in that? Or even like going back to kid with Charlie Chaplin, the kid didn't have a name, so I don't really mind that it doesn't.
Yeah,
have a name.
I'm kind of with Scott on that, but I do see where you're going, Corey, though, because like the thing that I like about the structure of Lone Wolf and Cub, like, which is what they're pretty much riffing on, that premise allows for like eternal storytelling, where you can travel from town to town and have different scenarios happen. And those scenarios can be very brief, like this last episode. They can be drawn out. I actually think it's pretty brilliant what they've done because they've actually like got a lot of creative freedom.
Right.
There's two things that really stood out to me in the last episode. One is it's really cool to see a storyline where one Imperial Walker is
a
pilot,
huge problem.
like, so you really get the idea of the power. Like if you just imagine what that actually would be like in a warlike scenario, it's like somebody having a tank. I mean, that is like a massive amount of firepower. So it was cool to see.
If they hadn't already established that a bunch of teddy bears could take them out like nothing in Return of the Jedi, then I'd be on board with you.
Logs, really. I mean, if you think about it, if they just had used logs and rope and like they could have taken it out a lot quicker. But it was cool to see that highlight like one individual walker as kind of the nemesis.
Yeah. And the shock troopers like, nope, I'm out. I've seen just one of these take out battalions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but we only ever see them in like, here's a giant row of 50 giant vehicles and a big lion as Kylo Ren fires everything at Luke. You know, we never see like what would happen if it's just like
in Endor, like getting knocked out, you know, like, but you don't really like, I thought it was cool to have just one be like the highlight villain. That was cool.
Yeah. Well, what I like about this, and I don't know how they're doing this, but I mean, Bryce Dallas Howard was the director for this last episode.
Yeah, I saw that. That surprised me at first. And I'm like, why does that surprise me knowing who her dad is? So, you know,
but then what I love about this is like, the obvious love interest, it wasn't a love interest at all. It was like just because there's these two people that happen to be opposite genders, they don't have to end up together. They don't have to have a romantic relationship. She was even like, why don't you go settle down with that chick over there? She seems into you, you know, like seems like a good deal. But what I like about what they're doing is that, because I like episodic stuff a lot, because in a lot of my like mindless entertainment, I just want predictability, you know, which sounds stupid, but like there are times when I want to be surprised, and there are other times when I'm just like, I just want predictability. And this, what I like about it is it has a little bit of both, because you still have, you know, Herzog, you still got like the bad guys, that's still an undercurrent. And what they introduced in this is that we knew that everyone had trackers before this episode, but he just found out, because he was basically like, I found a good place. I mean, they're fishing. He gets to eat all the frogs he wants. He's safe. There's like a mom and his sister. Like I found him a family, and I'm this like weirdo lone wolf Wolverine bounty hunter dude who just like, you know, I don't get along with people. I'm a horrible influence on this kid. And so like, he kind of realized in the middle that like, oh yeah, even though I'm attached, like this is a way better situation. And then they took that away.
Yeah.
And now he has to be with that kid, because until he kills every single bounty hunter that has one of those trackers, he is in danger.
Which
also,
is great, 'cause the stakes are super high, which makes it really interesting.
How do those trackers work?
I don't know. I don't know if somehow if maybe it's attached to,
is it part of his
DNA or midi-chlorians or
right? Like, how do the trackers work? I have to know. That's a story point that I've got to, just like,
I don't need to know. I don't want to know. It's Star Wars. I'd rather not know.
No, I want to know for the same reason that I finally was like, in this episode, they also explained that he takes his helmet off. He just doesn't take it off in front of other people.
That is true.
Because my mind gets so distracted. I'm like, does he like shove food up through the little gap? Is he like drinking? I had this conversation on Twitter. Somebody's like, is he drinking like, you know, some sort of heavily dense, nutrient-rich shake of some kind? No, he just doesn't take his helmet off in front of people.
Yeah.
I also want to know, like, if the Mandalorian just like ditched the weird like 3/4 sphere crib thing that Yoda baby flies around in, is that what they're tracking? What are they tracking?
Okay, one really.
Well, they had the Baby Yoda or the child, whatever you want to call him, in that thing, which I assume maybe has something to do with cloning or whatever, because they had the same symbols as the clone people in the prequels or whatever. But whatever they did, and maybe at that point he was somehow tagged or something. I don't know. It could be a number. If I could think of at least 5 different scenarios, then I'm happy enough that, okay, then I guess it's plausible. I don't need to know exactly why,
That's well highlighted, TJ. I think that's pretty amazing about the show that Baby Yoda's 50. One of the things that I want to make sure we touch on before we close out is Baby Yoda drinking soup during their fight was one of the most adorable things I've ever seen in my life.
Yep. And I want to say, I just want to, finishing up on this detail thing, I want to know all the details. I'm the guy who's like, finally we know why the Sith's lightsabers are red. It's because there's a ceremony that they go through where they darken their Jedi crystal as they turn. I want to know all those things.
Yeah, that can be all in extended universe stuff.
Yeah.
You don't have to. I don't know if you need to tell.
I'm not a midichlorian dude.
If you want to learn more about it, it's out there.
Yeah, I'm like, you have my suspension of disbelief at the word tracker and the fact that you somehow managed to get there. I'm like, okay, it's tracking. It's somehow doing that. And I don't need to know. If I did, this would become Star Trek. And the thing I like about Star Wars, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a fine line because I do like the explanations and I'm kind of with you, but it does start to become Star Trek-ish. I just like the little nods, I just like the little nods. I don't need them to break the fourth wall and look at me and explain. I think midichlorians are like one of the stupidest things that have ever happened because it's like, that is just dumb and you're just trying to explain too much. But I do think like when there are major things, because I think good storytelling is like this. Brian McDonald, who wrote Invisible Ink, has given this example. He said the most terrifying horror movies are not the ones where the people do something stupid that you wouldn't do and you're yelling at the screen like, put your shirt on, don't go to the basement, don't follow the weird sound into the room full of chainsaws. It's when the character does everything that you would do and then it still gets killed by the monster. And so for me, I immediately start thinking, okay, if I was the bounty hunter and I realized that this kid is being tracked, the first thing that I would do is get off that planet. The second thing that I would do is be like, all right, let's figure out what is going on here so that you can stop being tracked. Yeah.
And until somebody says, because they could have had that conversation, they could have just said, I mean, they're tracking his biosignal, so there's nothing I can do to remove it. And then I would be like, okay, there's nothing you can do to remove it.
Yeah.
But until they leave it ambiguous, I'm like,
I like that.
Why aren't you thinking about that?
And they may. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they do mention how they're tracking them. But
they're definitely seeding it. I mean, they've had the trackers in like 3 episodes now. So I mean, that definitely is an important plot point. I'm sure that'll come back.
And I mean, I'm not one of those guys that like, I have to know whether the Jedi communicators are using a radio signal because I just know that like, it's some sort of radio analog. I get it. Right. But when it's something that is integral to the plot, I want to know.
Yeah.
I want to know.
So overall, I agree with you, Cory, in the sense of like, I don't mind serialized episodic stuff. Like one of my favorite TV shows of all time is Magnum PI, which is the ultimate of like formulaic, repetitive, serialized TV shows. However, I also agree with Scott in the sense of like the writing and all of that so far. I love your sunglasses. Was probably, I would say I agree, it was probably the weakest of all the episodes so far. But the cool thing about this series is like, even for the weakest, I think it was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I did not like it, but if I had to put them in order, it probably was my least favorite so far. So
Yeah, no, I 100% am on board with that. So I do want to see Herzog come back because I just like.
Yeah, I'm kind of. What's interesting is all these other characters, like the character that we met, in this last episode. Is she going to? Are we going to see her again? Because it seems like they've mentioned these. Oh, this actress has this role, or
she's
we
on
saw
the poster.
Yeah, we saw the the same thing with the IG-88 guy.
IG-11.
Taika Waititi, was that who did the voice and everything?
Yeah.
So I mean, you wonder if these characters are gonna. It seems like they would come back, and also the Nick Nolte guy. We saw him in a couple episodes. I'd like to see him again. So, but who knows? I
don't look on IMDb. It's really disappointing.
Oh, okay, I won't.
All right. Well, I'm not going to because I don't want spoilers. All right. I think we got to wrap it. But this is fun, and I do like the idea of us ending on Mandalorian because I think we're all going to be watching that. Till they introduce like Jar Jar Binks the second. We're like, I can't handle
Because
it.
the great thing is, right after Mandalorian, you know that they're going to release whatever the other things that they've done because they're going to do an Obi-Wan. They're going to do. Yeah.
So didn't the director of this last episode is doing Obi-Wan?
Oh, really?
I thought the Bryce Dallas Howard.
I think so, or maybe it was the episode before. You never mind. It was the third. Whoever directed the third is the director who's running the Obi-Wan.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, I don't know, but I don't know. I don't want to go to IMDb. So.
All right. Well, yeah, we gotta wrap it. Thanks to everybody who joined us in the chat. I'm stoked that we have such an awesome group of artists and yet also nerds because they have followed us into the Mandalorian. All right, we will see you guys next week, and you'll probably see Scat on Thursday. So
Deborah Chow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Was that the third?
That was the third one. Was Deborah Chow? I don't know if she's also doing that other one, but yeah. So you can find my stuff at CoryKerr.com. You can find this show at CoryKerr.com/48HR. You can find Scott's stuff at CircWorks.com.
And actually, there's sorry, Josh, but there is. I've got a 25% off coupon if you go to my store. On digital projects and physical products, there's a banner there that will give you the and it expires soon, so
Yeah, you got a couple hours. So if you're watching this right now, act now.
If you're watching this later, then get on his mailing list so that you know the next time he does it.
Yeah.
Boom. All right.
And you can see Josh's stuff at JoshuaKemble.com, and we will see you guys on Wednesday.
All right. See you guys.